My parents sold my car while I was on vacation to lift up my adored sister's mood because of her divorce. Me, where's my car? They, we're family. What's yours is ours. Don't be so selfish. So, I sued them. The name's Rachel, and I'm the oldest of 2 daughters. From as far back as I can remember, I was the serious one, the independent one. My sister Lily, she was the complete opposite. Growing up, our house was always filled with noise, Lily's laughter, mom and dad's doting words, the constant buzz of the latest pop songs. Me? I preferred the quiet corners, nose buried in a book or scribbling away at my homework. Birthdays and holidays were a stark reminder of how different Lily and I were. While she'd tear through her gifts, squealing with delight at the latest trendy clothes or gadgets, I carefully set aside the money I received. What are you saving for this time, Rach? Dad would ask, a hint of pride in his voice that never quite reached his eyes. A laptop for studying, I'd reply. The library computers are always full. He'd nod, but I could see the disconnect. They never quite understood why I didn't want the things other girls my age did. Lily, on the other hand, was a whirlwind of ever-changing styles and demands. Mom, did you see the new iPhone? Everyone at school has one. I need it. And just like that, she'd have it, no questions asked, no saving required. I remember the day I finally bought my laptop. I'd saved for months, researching the best model for my needs. When I brought it home, I was bursting with pride. Look, I finally got it. I announced at dinner. Mom glanced up from her plate. That's nice, dear. Oh, Lily, tell us about your day at the mall, and just like that, the conversation shifted. Lily launched into a detailed description of her latest shopping spree, and my achievement faded into the background. I felt the familiar sting of being overshadowed and, without hesitation, pulled out my phone under the table, to use a new app I downloaded called Reclip. It's an app that lets you save the last 2 minutes of any conversation after it happened. It was all there, Mom's dismissal, Lily's attention grab. I didn't know if I'd ever need it, but having it felt like some small form of justice. As we grew older, the differences only became more pronounced. While Lily experimented with wild hairstyles and the latest fashion trends, I stuck to my practical ponytail and comfortable jeans. The library became my second home, a quiet sanctuary where I could focus on my goals without distraction. When it came time for college, I threw myself into applications with the same determination I'd shown throughout high school. I spent countless nights perfecting my essays, researching scholarships, and studying for entrance exams. The day I received my acceptance letter, along with a full scholarship, was one of the proudest moments of my life. I burst into the kitchen, waving the letter. Mom, Dad, I got in. Full ride? Mom looked up from where she was helping Lily with her makeup. Oh, that's nice, dear. Lily, hold still. I'm trying to get this eyeliner perfect. Dad glanced over his newspaper. Good job, Rachel. We expected nothing less. Their lukewarm response stung, and I knew I couldn't let this moment slip. I discreetly hit Reclip, saving the last 2 minutes of indifference. I retreated to my room, clutching the letter to my chest. This was my ticket out, my chance to prove myself. Meanwhile, Lily barely scraped through high school. The day she brought home her mediocre report card, I expected our parents to finally show some disappointment. Instead, they rallied around her. Oh, sweetie, don't worry about it, Mom cooed, stroking Lily's hair. College isn't for everyone. You're talented in so many other ways. Dad nodded in agreement. That's right, princess, you'll find your path. I couldn't believe my ears. Are you kidding me? She barely passed. Mom shot me a sharp look. Rachel, don't be cruel. Your sister has other gifts. As I turned to leave the room, I pulled out my phone and hit Reclip, capturing the entire exchange. College was a breath of fresh air. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who valued hard work and ambition. I threw myself into my studies, determined to make the most of this opportunity. One day during my sophomore year, I got a call from home. It was Lily, her voice bubbly with excitement. Rach, guess what? I'm thinking of taking some beauty courses. Mom and Dad think it's a great idea. I wanted to tell her about the fascinating research project I was working on, about the internship I'd landed for the summer, but I knew she wouldn't care. As I hung up, I couldn't help but feel a mix of frustration and determination. I was on my own path, and I was going to make it count. The years flew by while Lily flitted from one beauty course to another, never quite finishing anything. I graduated with honors, landed a job at a prestigious company before the ink was dry on my diploma. The day I moved into my own apartment was bittersweet. As I unpacked my meager belongings, I thought about how different my life was from Lily's. She was still living at home, being pampered by our parents, but I was standing on my own 2 feet, ready to take on the world. My first few months at work were a whirlwind. I worked longer hours than anyone else, determined to prove myself. My dedication didn't go unnoticed. Within a year, I was promoted to team leader. I called home to share the news. Mom answered, "Oh, Rachel, that's nice, but guess what? Lily's met the most wonderful boy. He comes from such a good family. We're all so excited." As she rattled on about Lily's new boyfriend, my promotion faded into the background. I hung up feeling deflated but more determined than ever. If my family couldn't appreciate my achievements, I just have to achieve even more. I threw myself into my work like a woman possessed. Days blurred into nights, weekends became just another opportunity to get ahead. My dedication paid off. I got another promotion, then another. Before I knew it, I was head of the department, the youngest in the company's history. Mr. Thompson, the owner, called me into his office one day. "Rachel, your work has been exceptional. We've never had someone rise through the ranks so quickly." I beamed with pride. "Thank you, sir. I love what I do." He smiled. "It shows. That's why I want to offer you something special. We have a program for our top employees, a chance to buy an apartment at a significant discount. You've more than earned it." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of paperwork and planning. When I finally got the keys, I felt like I was walking on air. I decided to throw a housewarming party, a chance to celebrate my success with the people who mattered most. I didn't have much furniture yet, so I bought some inexpensive plastic tables and chairs. I arranged everything carefully, making sure the disposable tableware matched the decor. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine, and I was proud of it. The day of the party arrived. My colleagues showed up first, bearing gifts and warm congratulations. Then my family arrived. Mom, Dad, and Lily swept in like a whirlwind. I noticed Lily's eyes darting around, taking in the modest furnishings with a barely concealed smirk. As the evening wore on, I noticed a pattern. Every time one of my colleagues tried to congratulate me or mention my accomplishments, my parents would swiftly change the subject to Lily. "Oh, that reminds me," Mom would say, cutting off my coworker mid-sentence. "Did Rachel tell you about Lily's latest modeling gig? She's just so photogenic." Dad would chime in, "Yes, our Lily was born for the spotlight." Such natural talent. I saw the confused and slightly horrified looks on my colleagues' faces. I wanted to sink into the floor. Lily, for her part, basked in the attention. "Oh, Mom, stop it," she'd say with a giggle, clearly loving every moment. I quietly reached for my phone, pretending to check messages, and hit reclip. Their words, once again, making it all about Lily, were saved. Finally, mercifully, my family left. As soon as the door closed behind them, my coworker Sarah turned to me, her eyes wide. "Rachel, what the hell was that?" she asked, her voice low and concerned. I shrugged, trying to play it off. "Oh, that's just how they are." After Lily's wedding, life settled into a new rhythm. Work kept me busy, but my mother's frequent visits became an unwelcome interruption. Every conversation was the same. "Rachel, darling," Mom would start, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "you'll never believe what Lily's been up to." I braced myself as she launched into another tale of Lily's fabulous new life. "She's been invited to the most exclusive gatherings. Can you believe it? Lily's rubbing elbows with high society." I felt my frustration rise and, without missing a beat, hit reclip to save the last 2 minutes of her endless praise for Lily. I was beginning to collect a lot of these moments, but I still didn't know how or when they'd come in handy. One day, after a particularly trying call, I couldn't hold back anymore. "Mom, that's great for Lily, but don't you want to know what's going on in my life?" There was a pause. "Oh, honey," she said, her tone patronizing. "Of course, we care, but you really should learn from your sister. Be more beautiful. Get things easily. Why work all day for pennies when you could have it all?" I felt the familiar sting of dismissal. A few weeks later, an invitation arrived. Lily and Robert were having a housewarming party for their new luxury apartment, a gift from his parents, of course. The night of the party, I stood outside their building, feeling small. I smoothed down my simple dress and took a deep breath before heading in. The apartment was stunning. Every surface gleamed, every piece of furniture looked like it cost more than my yearly salary. My parents were already there, cooing over every detail. I tried to blend into the background, but Lily spotted me. She sauntered over, champagne flute in hand. "Rachel, so glad you could make it," she said, her eyes scanning my outfit critically. "I hope you're taking notes. This is how a housewarming should be done. None of that plastic furniture and disposable dish nonsense like at your place." I felt my cheeks burn. "Lily, that's..." But she was already moving on, leaving me with the sting of her words. I quietly pulled out my phone, pretending to check messages, and hit reclip. Her snide remarks would be saved along with everything else. The weeks that followed were a parade of Lily's extravagance. She seemed to buy everything in sight, always the most expensive option. Then came the car. I was leaving work one evening when a sleek sports car pulled up beside me. The window rolled down, revealing Lily's smug face. "Like it?" she said, pretending just a little. "A gift from Robert. Thought I'd take it for a spin." I glanced at my reliable but unremarkable sedan. "It's very nice, Lily." She followed my gaze and laughed. "Oh, Rachel, always settling for less. You'll always be working for others while I live the good life." Before she sped away, I hit reclip again, saving her arrogant words. 2 years flew by in a blur of spreadsheets, meetings, and promotions. While I climbed the corporate ladder, Lily seemed content to climb from one shopping spree to the next. Our paths couldn't have been more different, but I'd made my peace with it. Or so I thought. It was a regular Tuesday when my world tilted on its axis. Mom called, her voice uncharacteristically shaky. "Rachel, it's Lily." She's back home. Robert left her. He said she was too shallow, too focused on spending his money. Called her stupid. Can you believe it? He had her sign a prenup, so she's got nothing. I felt a mix of emotions, shock, concern, and, if I'm being honest, a tiny flicker of vindication. I squashed it down immediately, ashamed of myself. I'm coming over, I said, already grabbing my keys. When I arrived at my parents' house, it was like walking into a war zone. I could hear Lily's screams from the driveway. Inside, it was worse. Lily was in the living room, mascara streaking down her face, her designer clothes torn. She was throwing anything she could get her hands on, vases, picture frames, cushions. He can't do this to me. She shrieked. I'm Lily. I'm beautiful. I'm perfect. Mom and Dad fluttered around her, trying to calm her down. Sweetie, please, Mom pleaded. We'll figure this out. Dad frantically nodded. We'll buy you a new dress, won't you, dear? Dad nodded frantically. Of course, princess. Anything you want. I stood there, watching the scene unfold, feeling like I was in some bizarre alternate reality. This couldn't be happening. This wasn't how life was supposed to work, was it? Quietly, I pulled out my phone and clipped the conversation. Another moment saved. As the days passed, Lily's tantrums didn't subside. She'd cry for hours, then scream, then demand expensive gifts to make herself feel better. Our parents, ever eager to please their favorite, complied with every request. One evening, after a particularly bad episode, I couldn't hold my tongue anymore. Maybe, I said cautiously, Lily should consider getting a job. It might help her appreciate the value of money and give her something to focus on besides all this. The room went dead silent. Then all hell broke loose. Lily's face contorted in rage. A job? Like you, slaving away day after day like some peasant? She burst into tears and ran upstairs, slamming her door so hard the house shook. Before I could process what had happened, Mom and Dad rounded on me. How dare you, Mom hissed. Your sister is going through a terrible time, and you suggest she lower herself to your level. I felt the sting of their words but quickly hit reclip to capture it all. I tried to explain. But I didn't mean. Get out, Dad said, his voice cold. Get out of this house right now. Mom pointed to the door. And don't come back until you can be supportive of your sister. In a daze, I grabbed my purse and left. As I walked into my apartment, my sanctuary, I felt a strange mix of emotions, sadness at being rejected by my family, anger at their blindness to Lily's faults, and oddly, a sense of relief. For the first time, I saw clearly how toxic my family dynamic had been all these years. Life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. Just days after the blowout with my family, I received news that left me speechless. I'd won a company contest, the prize a 4-month around-the-world cruise. In a moment of weakness, or perhaps hope, I called my parents. Maybe this good news would bridge the gap between us. Mom, Dad, you won't believe it. I won a cruise around the world. The silence on the other end was deafening, then my mother's cold voice cut through. Rachel, how can you be so selfish? Your sister is going through a terrible time, and you're bragging about vacations? I felt like I'd been slapped. I'm not bragging, I just thought. Mom interrupted. If you had any decency, you'd give that ticket to Lily. She needs a change of scenery. You can stay home, work like you always do. Something snapped inside me. Years of pent-up frustration, resentment, and anger came pouring out. No, I said firmly. I won this trip. I earned it. I'm not giving it up because Lily made poor life choices. I'm going. I clipped the conversation. I didn't want to forget the moment I finally stood up for myself. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. I packed my bags, put my affairs in order, and on the day of departure, I turned off my phone for the first time in years. I felt truly free. The cruise was everything I dreamed of and more. I watched sunsets in the Mediterranean, explored ancient ruins in Greece, marveled at the bustling streets of Hong Kong. For 4 glorious months, I was just Rachel, not the responsible older sister, not the family disappointment, just me. But all good things must come to an end. As the ship docked back home, reality came crashing back. I turned on my phone, bracing myself for the barrage of messages. Surprisingly, there were only a few missed calls from my parents. Feeling lighter than I had in years, I headed home. But as I approached my apartment door, I heard noises inside. My heart raced. Had someone broken in? I cautiously opened the door, only to find myself face to face with Lily. She was sprawled on my couch, surrounded by shopping bags and empty takeout containers. Lily, I gasped. What are you doing here? She looked up, barely fazed by my sudden appearance. Oh, you're back finally. I stood there, key still in hand, trying to process the scene before me. How did you get in here? Lily rolled her eyes. Don't be dense, Rachel. I used the spare keys you gave Mom and Dad. I needed a change of scenery. Everything at home reminded me of. You know. I stood there, staring at Lily, trying to process everything. This was too much. I needed air. I'm going to the store, I muttered, grabbing my car keys and heading for the door. But when I reached the parking lot, my car was nowhere to be seen. Panic rising, I immediately taxied to my parents, thinking this would require a face-to-face. Mom opened the door, voice sickly sweet. "Rachel, dear, how was your trip? Where's my car?" I demanded, cutting to the chase. There was a pause, then Dad came into the room. "We sold it." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "What? You what?" Lily needed cheering up, Mom explained, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "We used the money to take her shopping, to the spa." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "That was my car. You had no right." "Now, Rachel," Dad's stern voice cut in. "We're family. What's yours is ours. Don't be so selfish." Something inside me snapped. "Selfish? You steal my car, invade my home, and I'm selfish? I want my money back now." Their response was immediate and harsh. They called me heartless, ungrateful, a disappointment. The words stung, but I didn't break. I left and marched back to my apartment, but not before hitting reclip once again. All of these recordings may come in handy one day, I just wasn't sure when. Lily was still there, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. "Get out," I said, my voice quiet but firm. Lily looked up, shocked. "What? Get out? Now?" She tried to argue, to manipulate me like she always had, but I stood firm. For once in my life, I put myself first. The next day, I hired a lawyer and sued my parents for the value of the car. They were furious, threatening to disown me, to cut me out of their will. But I stood my ground. The case went to court, and I knew exactly how to prove my case. The courtroom was tense. My parents painted themselves as the victims, trying to portray me as an ungrateful daughter who cared more about money than family. The judge seemed unsure, until it was my turn to speak. I pulled out my phone. "Your Honor," I said, "I'd like to submit some audio recordings that tell a different story." I played the reclips, the time they sold my car without permission and called me selfish, the conversation where they admitted to selling it to cheer up Lily, and all the dismissive and manipulative remarks they'd made over the years. The judge listened intently as their words, captured in their own voices, filled the room. My parents' expressions shifted from smug to horrified as the truth played out for everyone to hear. The recordings made all the difference. There was no denying their actions now. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. My parents were forced to sell their house to repay me. They moved into a small apartment, all the while painting me as the villain who had ruined their lives. They were devastated, but for the first time, I didn't care. I had stood up for myself, and I had won. For once, their words couldn't touch me. As I drove my new car home from the dealership, I felt the weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I was truly free. Free from expectations. Free from manipulation. Free to be myself. I cut off all contact with my family. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was necessary. The first few months were hard. There were moments of doubt, of loneliness. But every time I felt scared, I re-listened to those reclips and reminded myself what awful parents I had been given. And slowly, I began to build a life on my own terms. I threw myself into my work, rising quickly through the ranks. I made new friends who appreciated me for who I was, not what I could do for them. I traveled, learned new skills, found hobbies that brought me joy, and most importantly, I learned to love myself, to appreciate my strength, my determination, my worth. Now, as I sit in my office, looking out over the city, I can't help but smile. I felt so grateful for those reclips, that had been the key to finally being heard. The path I chose wasn't easy, but it was mine. I built this life brick by brick, decision by decision, and I wouldn't have it any other way.